Welcome back to Callahan's Corner. Mike Callahan here, where you ask the questions, we answer them live on Facebook. Let me tell you, before we get into subcontractors and how to go out and find the best subcontractors and the things you need to be doing to cover yourself legally and make sure you have retention for the whole entire season, I gotta tell you, check out Turfs Up Radio, specifically Carpool was just on with Darren over there. Had a great time this morning for Turfs Up Radio, dropped some knowledge and had a lot of fun. So something that I was really excited to get on there, Turfs Up Radio today. Check out the podcast they have, but I'm on the Carpool episode from today, August, I believe today is the 12th. Time is flying by. So speaking of August 12th, and one of the questions submitted was, Mike, what is the best practice to go out and find subcontractors specifically for snow removal? But I'm also going to hit on lawn care as well. So even if you're in the home cleaning industry and you are going out and finding subcontractors, this will be applicable. So question at hand was how to go out and find the best subcontractors for your snow removal or lawn care business. So first thing that I did is I created a video just like this. Put it on top of a landing page with a service autopilot form for people to actually fill out and start the application process to become a subcontractor. So the things that we want to talk about to differentiate ourselves as the A-level top contractor to work for as a subcontractor is the first thing I want to hit on, and exactly what we did at Callahan's was the pay. So most subcontractors are paid monthly or even longer than 1 month. So in the example of lawn care or snow removal, if we have a subcontractor agreement, traditionally is that I finish all the work as a subcontractor. I send the bill to the company I'm doing the work for, and then I get paid probably another 20 to 30 days later. So the first thing we did to differentiate ourselves and find the best, most qualified subcontractors was we paid our subcontractors on the same weekly rhythm as our employees. Now, don't get confused. They are not employees. They are subcontractors. I'm going to break down all the things in between. But instead of paying them every month and making them submit that invoice, we paid them for everything they would have done this week. We paid them the following week. Now, if you're doing snow removal, you know this is important because cash flow is king, especially if you get into a massive snowstorm back to back to back, as you can see in the Northeast. I mean, you'd run 30, 40, 50, maybe $60,000 of payroll in a couple days when these storm events hit. So the first thing is we're going to differentiate ourselves and have good cash flow in our company internally so we can pay our subcontractors on a weekly basis. Next thing is if we're doing snow removal, we want to inspect their equipment. Depending on the piece of equipment, if it was a truck, they would actually drive to our office. If it was a bigger piece of equipment, such as a skid, backhoe, loader, we require those pieces of equipment to be on site, and those are dedicated pieces of equipment. So in order to make sure they had the piece of equipment or the piece of the equipment they were using was going to hit a certain threshold, we would want to see the equipment. We would inspect the equipment. When impossible, we would ask for a list of references and inspect their jobs. So one of our lawn care landscape maintenance subcontractors, we went out and inspected their work. And we found out where their work was from them and some other ones. We did some digging to make sure the quality of work they did was at par to what we did in our company. Now, the main thing here is when we do the subcontractor agreement, we want to go and pay a lawyer. We want legal assistance in here. No matter your state, if it looks, it smells, it feels like an employee, the farther the state is concerned, it's an employee. So we definitely want to make sure that they're running their own workman's comp, their insurance, and they are indeed a subcontractor legally. We don't want to get in that gray area. But once we've kind of solidified that, we're getting all the tax documents we need and getting them set up for 1099. And then we're going to a lawyer and having a contractual agreement built out that you are going to sign as the business, and the subcontractor is also going to sign. Now, inside that agreement should probably be a non-solicit. A non-compete is probably not going to work, but I don't care if my subcontractor runs the biggest lawn care company or snow removal company in my market. That doesn't matter to me. What I want in the legal agreement for the subcontractor is a non-solicit, and a non-solicit particularly to the service, the properties that they are servicing and the other properties they may have access to in their database. So if they're a snowplow subcontractor, they may be backing up on other properties as well. So we want to have that ironclad in a contract with a lawyer with a non-solicit up to the maximum years of probably 5 years after they stop working with you. Very, very important. A lot of times if we're not looking for subcontractors in July or August for this upcoming winter, or if we're looking for them in April or May when we need them last minute for landscape maintenance, that's too late. We want to make sure we got our ducks in a row. Worst thing we could do is hire a subcontractor in a bind, not have that legal agreement in place, and they come back a month or two later and gut that account from you. I've seen it. It's happened to us in the early days. So those are things you want to be aware of. So don't make a short-term pain make you make a bad decision with a subcontractor is where I'm going. Next thing is we want a quality control constraint built into the contractual agreement. So if the job is not done to the predetermined specs they agreed to, we will call them or email them, and with some certain timelines, especially with the snow removal and ice conditions as far as slip and fall litigation, we want to get that subcontractor back. Now, if the subcontractor is non-responsive in the agreed time, especially for snow removal, we may have to go out and clean up their mess. Also in there should be a predetermined hourly rate if you have to fix it for them. Now, I would suggest making it painful because the worst thing you want to do is after a huge snow event and we've got a quality issue where your whole team has gone home and they're sleeping and it's the subcontractor's job that needs to be fixed. We go to call them, they don't answer, and they're hibernating for the next 2 days. That still needs to be fixed. You're still legally obligated to fix that slip and fall issue or melt or refreeze or whatever that is. So we want to have some penalty built into that contractual agreement up front. In addition to that, we also want to go in and really just define what the expectation is, and with your lawyer around your state laws or subcontractor, make sure you're well within the reasoning of what a subcontract is versus an employee. So those are the main things. And then the last thing, especially in snow removal, but really in landscape maintenance too, is if they are a no-show. So if the weather triggers an event and they have to go out and plow or salt and they no-show and you can't get a hold of them, you still have to go out and maintain that property as a business owner that's subcontracting that work out. So what happens when your subcontractor literally goes off the radar and they're nowhere to be seen and you're scrambling to get the rest of that work, or you're paying another sub to back them up? There needs to be a penalty for no-show, and I suggest making it double or triple whatever your hourly rate is. Make it an extreme penalty so they are really hesitant to turn their phone off after plowing and not answer those calls. Now, in addition to that, I like to have it as a basically end-of-year retention payout for the subcontractor. So this is all written in the contract, but if you show up every time we have to plow, every time you have to salt, you're on time within the constraints of the service agreement that they're subbing out to them, there is a retention payout. So maybe it's 20% of the actual total value of the contract that you're subbing out to them. That is paid out April 1st or April 5th, and it's after they fix the turf damage. Can be the same thing far as lawn care with some different flexibility far as like pruning season or mulching season, things like that. But we want to set some executables in there because they're not an employee. You can't tell them the exact day and time they have to do it, but we can set some parameters in the work agreement in the contract that they have to meet, and let's make some penalties in there already up front. So kind of like a divorce. Nobody thinks they're going to get divorced, but I'll tell you, when you get divorced and the lawyers get involved, all bets are off. It's going to be a battle to the end. So have the due diligence done up front where you're both agreeing in it, you're both amicable, and you both like each other. Because eventually that relationship with that subcontractor could end. So we want to have that in that legal agreement. Now, the final thing is make it easy for the subcontractor. So if you've got a landscape maintenance, let's say a subcontractor for doing your mulching, your pruning, bed edging, and weeding. That subcontractor is probably not set up with the process and systems that you have. We had a really, really good subcontractor at Callahan's. And obviously he wanted to estimate all his own jobs, but our estimating process as far as square foot production rates and things like that were pretty advanced. And this gentleman was more pen and paper, amazing contractor. But we gave them access to Service Autopilot as a vendor and restricted down the user roles and rights. And they gave us their pricing structure, and we built subcontractor pricing within Service Autopilot. So they never sent the estimate to the consumer, but they would actually create an estimate for the property, and we'd automate all of that through the mobile app so they could use our on-site estimate form and create estimates quickly. Our team would take them, turnkey them after marking them up, and then fire them out to the client. But that was a twofold thing. So now we had a documented written quote from our subcontractor in the system that they basically have signed off on. So if there was ever a billing or payment issue discrepancy that did not require the owner, myself, to have to jump in and kind of mediate, whatever they had quoted us that we had in the system that hadn't been manipulated was what we were paying on. That was part of the agreement. So using a product like Service Autopilot to create an estimating tool for your subcontractors, if they don't have a tool of their own, is an added benefit for sure. And then they could use the mobile to track their jobs, and then we knew where they were done, and when they were done and completed, that would trigger our billing, and it would also automatically trigger their payment a week in advance, or the following week. So they didn't have to necessarily go in and create invoices and do all that stuff that most subcontractors just don't want to do. So I suggest differentiating yourself, create a process so it's easy to pay them every week, and if you're comfortable restricting down some access in a software like Service Autopilot, give them access to the mobile or the desktop user, pay for it, but give them the ability to automate and streamline their estimates for you as a subcontractor. And that makes it a lot easier and will streamline your payment process internally as well. So hopefully that's helpful. But main things is we differentiated by paying weekly. So we pay the last week, this week, same cadence and timing as a employee, get the contract written by the lawyer, make sure they got the right equipment and inspect their jobs previously before hiring them. Penalties for no-show, make it clear and transparent in the legal document. If the sub doesn't fix it, they will be paying you an hourly rate with a minimal, and make sure the expectation is if it doesn't meet the standards that are provided by the subcontract agreement, that they are legally responsible to go fix that. And the non-solicit, so they're not soliciting and trying to get your clients. And then make it easy for them to do estimates in a product like Service Autopilot once you have that relationship. But just make sure you lock down those roles and rights as far as that vendor logging in there. But by all means, offer them the ability. You can't require it, but you can offer the ability for them to log in and use that mobile. When they do that, we know the job's done. We have any particular comments in there. Everything's a streamlined workflow of communication, and then we can build that out immediately and pay them the following week. So comments or questions, drop below. Callahan's Corner. You ask the questions, we answer them live right here on Facebook. And if you haven't checked it out, check out today's episode of Turfs Up Radio Carpool with Mike Callahan and the host, Darren. So look forward to hopefully seeing you on the recorded version of that. Had a good time today. We'll see you again tomorrow on Callahan's Corner.